In Episode 6, titled Your Daily Listening Study Loop, we're building a simple routine that improves retention without demanding big blocks of time or perfect conditions. The point is not to study harder. It's to study in a way that makes the information stick after a busy day, when your brain is already full. A consistent loop can turn short listening sessions into durable memory by adding tiny moments of retrieval and reflection instead of passive exposure. This approach also reduces the "I listen to a lot, but remember none of it" problem that shows up when audio learning becomes background noise. By the end of this, you'll have a practical rhythm that fits into real life, not an idealized schedule. The first rule of the loop is choosing one focus topic per session, not many, because attention is a finite resource. When you try to cover multiple topics in a single short session, you end up sampling everything and mastering nothing, which feels productive in the moment and disappointing later. A single focus topic gives you a clear mental container, so your brain knows what to look for, what to connect, and what to retrieve when you test yourself. This also makes it easier to notice confusion because you can tell the difference between "I'm tired" and "I don't actually understand this concept." Over time, one-topic sessions create a steady accumulation of solid pieces rather than a shaky collection of half-remembered fragments. Once you pick a focus topic, the next skill is active listening, and it's more than just paying attention. Active listening means periodically pausing and predicting what the next concept will be, out loud, in your own phrasing, even if the prediction is imperfect. That prediction forces your brain to form a model of what it thinks is happening, which makes the incoming explanation easier to attach to something real. It also exposes gaps immediately, because if you cannot predict the next step at all, you have located the point where understanding broke down. Over time, this becomes a reflex. You stop consuming content like a playlist and start treating it like a conversation where your mind has to participate. Right after each segment, add a quick recall drill and keep it simple. Restate the idea in your own words without replaying it. This is not a test of perfect vocabulary. It is a test of whether you can reconstruct the concept from memory, which is the same skill the exam demands. If you can explain it plainly, you own it. And if you cannot, you have a clear signal that you need one more pass or one clearer example. The most effective recall is short and specific, focusing on the main point and what makes it different from nearby concepts. This also makes your next listening segment more efficient, because you are stacking new information on a stable foundation instead on a fog of familiarity. The loop works best when you respect the difference between repetition and spaced repetition. Repetition is replaying something again soon, often within the same sitting, and it can create a false sense of mastery because the content still feels fresh. Spaced repetition means revisiting ideas over days, not hours, so the brain has time to forget just enough that retrieval becomes meaningful. That almost forgot moment is where learning deepens, because retrieving a concept from partial decay strengthens the memory trace. Spacing also fits busy schedules because it turns small daily sessions into a deliberate pattern rather than an all-or-nothing grind. When you treat spacing as the engine of retention, consistency becomes more important than intensity. To make spacing practical, rotate topics instead of drilling one area continuously, because overfitting is real in study as much as it is in security analytics. If you listen to the same type of material every day, you may become great at that narrow slice while neglecting the breadth that the exam will demand. Rotation prevents your confidence from becoming misleading, because confidence built on repeated exposure to one area can feel like readiness while the rest of the domain remains weak. A rotation approach also helps your brain form crosslinks, because concepts encountered on different days begin to connect, which improves recall under exam pressure. The goal is balanced growth, steady progress across areas, rather than spikes in one topic that fade quickly. A small but powerful habit inside the loop is creating tiny notes, and the key word is tiny. Use one-sentence summaries only, because long notes often become a second project, and second projects usually die when life gets busy. One sentence forces you to compress the idea into its essence, which is another form of retrieval practice disguised as note-taking. It also creates a lightweight review asset you can scan quickly later without feeling like you have to study your notes as a separate chore. Over time, those one-sentence summaries become a personal index of what you actually understood, not a transcript of what you heard. Because this is an audio-first loop, you can extend learning into time that is already spoken for by daily life. Mental scenarios work especially well while commuting or doing chores because they turn passive time into structured rehearsal without needing screens or special setup. The technique is to imagine a simple situation that matches the topic, and then ask yourself what the next best decision would be, given realistic constraints. When you do this, you are training decision-making, not memorization, and that aligns well with how exam questions frame choices. It also keeps the content grounded, because scenario thinking forces you to connect concepts to outcomes, assets, and limits instead of treating them as isolated definitions. One of the biggest traps in audio study is binge listening without recall practice, because it feels productive while producing surprisingly little long-term retention. Binge listening creates familiarity, and familiarity is comforting, but familiarity is not the same as recall, especially when you need to answer under time pressure. Another trap is treating audio like background entertainment, where your attention drifts and the learning becomes shallow even if the episode keeps playing. The loop prevents these traps by inserting brief moments where your brain must produce an answer, a summary, or a prediction. Those moments are what convert listening into learning, and without them, you are mostly collecting exposure. The goal is to keep sessions short enough that you can stay engaged and structured enough that engagement turns into memory. On tired days, the loop needs a minimum viable version that still protects learning without demanding energy you do not have. The quick win routine is built around 3 actions: listen to a short segment, do a brief recall in your own words, then do a short review of a prior one-sentence note. Even when the recall is messy, the act of attempting it strengthens retrieval pathways, which is more valuable than perfect performance. The short review step links today's learning to yesterday's learning, which quietly reinforces spacing without turning it into a complicated schedule. This approach also reduces guilt because the session still counts as meaningful practice even if it is not your best day. Consistency matters more than heroics, and the quick win routine keeps consistency alive. Measuring progress is another place learners lose momentum because they track time spent rather than confidence gained. Time can increase while understanding stays flat, especially when sessions are passive, and that can lead to frustration. A better metric is confidence ratings. After a session, decide whether you could explain the focus topic clearly, apply it in a scenario, and distinguish it from similar ideas. If confidence is low, that is not failure. It is guidance for what should be revisited during a spaced review. If confidence is moderate, the topic is likely ready to be rotated out and revisited later, which protects breadth. Over weeks, confidence ratings give you a map of readiness that time logs cannot provide, and they make your study choices more honest. To sharpen recall and scenario thinking, add a memory technique built around categories that mirror how exam prompts present information. A useful mental frame is to label what you are dealing with by phase, asset, constraint, and outcome, because those elements help you structure answers even when details are limited. Phase anchors where you are in the workflow, which prevents skipping ahead to actions that do not fit the moment. Asset keeps you grounded in what is being assessed, which shapes what best means in context and prevents tool name reflexes from driving decisions. Constraint forces you to respect boundaries like safety, scope, permissions, and timing, while outcome keeps you focused on what the decision is trying to achieve rather than on what is merely possible. Now bring the pieces together as a daily loop that is simple enough to run without friction and structured enough to build retention. Start by selecting a single focus topic so the session has a clear target and does not dissolve into general exposure. While listening, insert active moments by predicting what should come next and then doing short recall drills after segments, because those are the actions that turn sound into memory. Across days, revisit topics with spacing and rotate across areas so you build breadth without overfitting to a comfortable slice of content. Keep your notes tiny and your measurement honest by using one-sentence summaries and confidence ratings, which guide what you revisit and when. When this loop becomes routine, even short sessions start compounding into real exam readiness. Today's takeaway is that retention comes from a rhythm, not from willpower, and the rhythm can be small and still be effective. A single topic session, active prediction, and quick recall drills do most of the heavy lifting, especially when combined with spaced revisits across days. Rotation prevents blind spots. Tiny notes keep review lightweight. And mental scenarios turn everyday time into practice without needing extra setup. Confidence ratings help you prioritize what to revisit, while the phase asset constraint outcome frame keeps recall structured and exam relevant. Before tomorrow arrives, decide where a 15-minute session will naturally fit into your day, because scheduling the moment is what turns a good plan into an actual habit. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.